heavy. Mug life, baby, yeah, we rockin' the booth. We mugging for life, we mugging for truth. Smaulgld here, and he's spitting the facts about the pumper community and the way that they act. We mugging for life, we ain't playing the games. We all know the lies and we all know the names. Come on, mugging for life, mugging for life. Smaulgld.
Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. It is Monday, the 29th of April, 2019. And tonight's topic: Tether, Bitfinex, New York Attorney General, and Bit licenses. We're going to discuss the controversy over Tether and Bitfinex and how it plays into other Bit license, New York Bit license holders and their stable coins. And it is Monday, so it is Monday night mugging for life with Smaulgld. Welcome, mug stackers and game changers. We got a big show tonight. We have the latest on the Mueller report, some eyebrow-raising comments by Sally Yates, Rosenstein, big announcement as well. Got an interesting story about Chinese bicycle overproduction. Got some news on Bakkt, some big news on Bakkt. We have some stories about the Federal Reserve and what they're planning and what they're talking about. And we've got a very decent Moronica as well. So let's get right into everything right away with the gold and silver prices and the crypto prices. Gold's down. Silver was down, but silver was down more than gold. And so quickly we're going to see those charts, and then we're going to move on to the stories. Briefly, we've mixed up the weekend now. We've always had for a while now, Saturday night silver with Smaulgld. Last night we had solid gold Sunday with Smaulgld. So those two nights will be dedicated to silver and gold respectively. And then during the week, we're going to spend more time on the general news of the day, some economics, what's going on with the Fed, the ECB, and cryptocurrencies. And frankly, there's a lot more going on in the crypto markets than there are in the gold and silver markets. Also, gold and silver have a rich history that often gets overlooked when people are just looking for the next price movement. I don't really follow that. I like to look at the history of gold and silver. So we've got plenty of stories to cover on the weekends. We'll do that. We'll also cover gold and silver when appropriate, but there's not always a story to cover each and every day, whereas in the crypto space, there generally are many stories that are noteworthy, and we'll cover those as well. Don't worry, we're not going to skimp on any content. It's just that on Saturday and Sunday, generally days that are not news heavy, we can focus solely on gold and silver because many of the Smaulgld subscribers and followers have been following Smaulgld for a long time, and some of them only want to hear about gold and silver. So that's the time to tune in. For the rest of you who enjoy spending upwards to an hour or more each and every evening going through the news of the day and making your own comments on it, that's what the weekdays are for, and that's what we're going to continue to do. Okay, let's take a look at the gold and silver prices very quickly. Not a good day today for gold. Down a little bit. Down $5.85, down 0.5%, down to $12.79. So we've lost that 1,300 level, and that's about where the price is right now in the after hours. Silver has lost the 15 handle and is now below 15 at 14.90. That's not a percentage point. You go down 15 cents on a $15 price, and you lose 1%. It's not very good. And what did that do for the unsustainable out of whack gold-silver ratio? Well, went all the way up to 86.5, closed the day at about 86. Now, the problem we're not going to talk about the gold-silver ratios and all the reasons why the gold-silver ratio is where it is. We've covered it so many times in individual YouTubes and also opportunistically whenever we pull up the gold-silver ratio. We're not going to discuss that, but we are going to discuss briefly a lot of the general mindset that makes you believe something like the gold-silver ratio, because you hear it on the pumper channels, and they tell it's unsustainable, should be this to 1, 16 to 1, 15 to 1, 9 to 1, 1 to 1, whatever nonsense they tell you. Well, it's the same thing when they start telling you why gold should be higher all the time. One of the common things you hear about gold, it's a fake paper market. It's unsustainable. The same type of mantra that you hear. Now, the problem with that argument is, and you have to stop and ask yourself, are you going to listen to this for another 10 years? about how at some point this and that, unsustainable. Here's the real, and I think everyone would agree with this if they actually stopped and thought about it. Why are people upset about lower gold and silver prices? The real reason is the price is low in fiat price. Now, there's some absolute silver fanatics who'll tell you, oh, just measure your wealth in ounces. Yeah, same people that are selling you silver and getting fiat currency for it. But if you're actually living your life day to day, you're upset because the price is down in dollars. And why do you want dollars? Because you want to spend stuff. You want to buy things. Maybe you want to buy a house. Maybe you want to buy a car. Or even you want to save money. You don't want the value of your savings that you have in silver to drop in fiat value. Otherwise, you would just sit back and say, what difference does it make? I have 100 ounces, I have 100 ounces. No, if 100 ounces is worth half in fiat from what it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever it was, well, then you're not happy. So really what it comes down to is not that it's fake, is that the world runs in reality on fiat currency. You may say it's fake, you may not like it. So they go on and on about this fake paper market. I say it's a gold pumper cliche. Remember, if the world actually valued physical gold, oh, but central banks are buying gold. No, they're not buying that much gold because they're saying to themselves, wow, at this, quote, paper price, it's a real bargain. If that were the case, the idea of a paper price being out of whack would mean that people, if they didn't believe that, they can buy all the physical they want at that paper price. Well, what it really is telling you is that people respect and want the paper price more than they want the physical. And you say, that's ridiculous. Who would want paper instead of gold? The people that trade it. The people that actually value it as fiat. And why would you want to buy physical gold if the goal is to make money? Well, you're going to then sell it for paper profits. The thing, if you actually sat down and thought about it, more gold trades via the paper markets than the physical markets, which means you could say it's a fraud, it's unsustainable, whatever you want to say. But if enough people actually believed that it was a fraud and it was unsustainable, then they would buy the physical gold, all of it, at the current price because it's the fake paper price. And that is simply just the gold pumper narrative. It is not true. The bulk of gold is traded on price. But the reason it's traded on price is because the world values the fiat. They don't value the gold. They value the gold relative to the fiat price. And that hurts to hear that if you like gold a lot. Not Goldilocks, but gold a lot. If you like gold a lot, you can't conceive that the world views the gold as not the valuable item, but it's the fiat. It's the way it is, and you may not like it, but it is such a minority view to think that the gold is what's driving the value proposition in the world and the financial system. It's not. It's the fiat price of gold is more important than the actual ounce of gold. If that wasn't the case, more physical gold would be sold than paper contracts. They buy paper contracts not because they want to stand for delivery. Why do they want the gold? They want the gold price to go higher. So they're long gold contracts. If they actually took the delivery of the gold and then the price rose, well, then they would have to sell it. So there's no point in them doing that. So it's pointing out that people want the fiat price of gold. They don't want the gold themselves. It's the same reason why more investors buy the GLD. Now, there is a disadvantage to that. I don't discount it. You don't have the insurance of having the gold in an emergency. But remember, the world doesn't live on a constant state of emergency. Fortunes are made in not emergencies, far more than are made just on the every decade or so emergency. So people keep saying, oh, there's no real price discovery. It's fake. It's fake. No, it's real. That if it's 10, 20, 30, 40 years of whatever you want to call it, manipulation, during that time period, that's the period of time of your life. That's what the price is. You can complain all you want, but it's not going to work. Now, I'm having this discussion with a number of people, and they're calling it a scam, and I have to say, wake up, we live then in such a scam. You can tweet about it all you like, but your life in the world runs on a dollar-based fiat system, not some gold is real money, period, nostalgia, pine for in gold pumper newsletters and books. I mean, is your paycheck a scam because it's not gold? You don't get a denarius at the end of the day? I think this is the biggest problem that the people that follow gold and silver have, is that somehow the rest of the world is screwed up. Not them. And then they tell each other, and you get follows and likes, and they buy the books, they buy everything that confirms their view that the world is screwed up. It's just not the case. Now, my final little bit on this is, let me give you the final bit. If you ever play Monopoly, you are certain to lose, and you will never win if you keep saying this isn't real money. Cut off again, but we're back. I was trying to say that you will never win at Monopoly if you keep insisting this isn't real money. And it's the same thing in the markets. If you keep saying it's fake, it's unsustainable, whatever it is you want to say, it's not going to work. Now, I'll give you an example. I saw a debate between Peter Schiff and Max Kaiser. And it doesn't matter which side you're on, whether you like Bitcoin or gold. It's really irrelevant. But the people that believe everything is fake, they believe only gold is money. And at one point, Peter says to Max, when the price was going up, I think it was like $2,200 at the time. It was in 2017. And he was saying, look, this thing's a big bubble. You don't want to be in it. And it went up to 20,000 from there. And Max was yelling and screaming, end of central banks, being your own central banker, Bitcoin forever and whatever. And the point is not to discuss the relative merits of the two. But what Peter said was, look, what if I'm right? What if I'm right? You should sell some Bitcoin now and buy yourself some gold. Because what if I'm right? What Max should have said to him was, well, what if I'm right? Shouldn't you have some Bitcoin? But you see, once you get the mentality that you think that only gold is money or only silver is money, period, and everything else is fake, you're not hedged against the reality that maybe either it's not fake or maybe it's sustainable a lot longer than you think it's unsustainable, and that you're actually harming yourself with the bunker mentality. Because if you really believe that the reason you have gold and silver is for the bunker days, then get your insurance. After that, there's no point in being overinsured. I don't understand it. So you'll never win at Monopoly if you keep insisting this isn't real money. And it's the same thing in investing, I believe. If you keep saying this is all fake, it's all fake, it's all fake. Remember, there are people who make a business out of telling you it's fake. The ones who sell you metals, the ones who sell you subscriptions, the ones who sell you books, they're fiat rich. They're not poor. They may say it's fake, but the reality is they make real money, meaning fake money in their eyes, telling you everything is fake. But I do want to say something, that there's also this ridiculous argument that I hear all the time about when they try to trash gold and they say, oh, what happens when they start asteroid mining? Yeah, what happens when they start asteroid mining? And there's World and Science telling you there's a single garden variety metallic asteroid that contains vastly more gold that's ever been mined in the history of the world. And to all the digital heads and the Bitcoin fanatic, that's it, game over, no gold, ha ha. Yeah, and one day people will teleport themselves from place to place, so there's no point in having stocks and planes, trains, and automobiles. It's this whole concept that something is unsustainable and therefore has no value. And that is ridiculous, because everything is unsustainable. Your life is unsustainable, therefore it has no value. Okay, you could be a nihilist or get into existentialism, say, yeah, that's a fact, you're born, you die. But putting that type of thinking aside, everything is unsustainable. There were fortunes made in the Dow, in companies in the 30s and 40s and 50s that it no longer existed. Did that mean that the people that lived during those times didn't make fortunes because at some point those companies were unsustainable? Yeah, I think the quote unsustainable argument passes as some type of intellectual observation. Well, you can spot a bubble. He's smart. He knows this is unsustainable. Yeah, that's like saying everyone who's listening to this podcast will die. See how smart I am? You're all unsustainable, and therefore you should buy my newsletter, my book, or whatever else I'm selling. All right, sorry for the little rant there, but I get off on a tangent once in a while on that because that is a large part of the gold and silver mentality that's pumped into your head. They don't really talk about the properties of gold, the history of silver, the usefulness of silver. They just basically tell you everything is unsustainable, everything is fake, only gold and silver are real money, period. All right, let us move on before we get into this Tether story. Interesting story out of China, these bicycles. Now, I always talk about China and how it is a top-down, centrally planned economy that is unsustainable, that is debt-ridden. The only reason I point it out is, yes, of course it's unsustainable, but the same people, and I never understood this one, who claim that the U.S. is in debt, the U.S. just prints money, sends it to China, China sends us stuff. You know, there's a cliche there that the U.S. debt is unsustainable. But all debt is unsustainable, and when you raise the issue of China's debt, they say, well, it's owed to themselves, like that makes a difference. And it's really the United States because it ties into the end of dollar hegemony, dollar collapse, game over, game changer, gold back yuan, petro yuan, all that nonsense. And the point is that China, whatever debt issues the United States has, China has by a factor of 3. Their entire economy runs on printing yuan or borrowing dollars. And just another example of it is, this is the New York Times pointing out, and they generally want to be favorable to China, but they show this bicycle field of bicycles that have absolutely no value whatsoever because they've made so many bicycles. They were going to rent them. I don't know what they're going to do. 18-second clip here. I'll leave in the show notes tomorrow, and you can see it. As far as the eye can see, acres of bicycles. And it's an example of, this is according to the New York Times reporter, how China's scale leads to so much waste. This farmer's field was filled with bikes that once belonged to the many bike-sharing startups. Once called unicorns and valued at billions of dollars. Now not even the tires are on. And I call China's economy, build them and they will, never mind. I mean, there's just no point, but that is how China runs. And that is a point. They've already reached the point where they can't build any more bicycles. They can't build any more bridges to nowhere. They can't build any more 50-story skyscrapers. And at some point, as they say in Goodfellas, then when you can't do that anymore, you just bust the joint out. And that's what's going to happen. Now, somebody says, well, you know, they should just ship them to Africa, or they should ship them where the poor kids need them. Yeah, and you're assuming that all those bikes are properly made and constructed are safe. Probably not a chance. China to crush the bicycles, not the dollar. It looks like China to crush the bicycles. But that story will persist. There's a narrative in it. There's people who believe in it. The China to crush the dollar. The BRICS have had it. End of dollar hegemony. Multipolar world. Gold 50,000. China's going to revalue. China's going to crush the COMEX. All these stupid stories that people get paid to scribble about, right? JP Morgan has hundreds of millions of ounces of silver. Oh my. No one ever... But, you know, you want to believe that, go ahead and believe it. And invest accordingly, as they say. All right, let's move on now from the gold and silver and to see what's going on in the cryptocurrencies here. Now, Grayscale Investments says that they're receiving record amounts of funding now into their funds, another $20 million. I don't know what the period of time was for this, but clearly the price drop from 20,000 to 5,000 has not deterred any investment into the space. And now you got all these, I don't want to say jackasses coming out of the woodwork, but these predictions. Bitcoin could be headed to 10,000, a lot higher. Then you got the Fundstrat guy. He's a permabull. He's saying 7 reasons. He's got 7 reasons. One's not enough. Bitcoin price will smash records in 2020. I mean, these guys are as myopic as the gold and silver pumpers. They just never end. But here's an interesting thing I didn't realize. Good old Oracle of Omaha, Coke swilling, Big Mac stuffing. Bitcoin is rat poison squared, Warren Buffet. Well, big genius that he is. The last 10 years, the S&P has outperformed him. So he's pretty much lost his luster there. I think he lost his luster once he became a crony capitalist. He invested in Goldman Sachs just before the financial crisis hit on the understanding they would bail him out. Then he had the audacity to write a thank you to Uncle Sam letter, basically for bailing him out. He would have gone totally bust, as would all of his portfolio companies. And now he's been around for 10 years. You know, like a lot of people, they live off of their past glory. Nothing wrong with that. But it's really the problem of people still listening to somebody who really has lost it. I mean, I don't mean he's lost it. He's still got all his marbles. But that Midas touch is no longer there. I mean, his whole thing was that it's really not a cut on him. He used to beat the S&P all the time. I mean, he was a genius with his Graham, whatever it was. He'd look at undervalued stocks and figure it out. And I would say it's actually not his fault that the reason he's not beating the market is because the market now doesn't follow the way he invests. It doesn't follow. I mean, when you have companies like Lyft and Uber and Tesla and Snap and all these companies that rise in tremendous fashion and they make no earnings. Well, Buffett doesn't buy that stuff. He calls that fake, right? So he's not going to invest in that. But 10 years the S&P has beat Buffett. So he's another has-been now, like 90% of fund managers who just can't beat the S&P. But when he talks about Bitcoin, everybody listens to him like he knows something. No, he doesn't know. He knows no more than anyone else. In fact, he says, I don't know anything about Bitcoin, so therefore I'm not investing. It was the same reason he missed the dot-com bubble for the same reason. He didn't understand what they were doing, what they were talking about. All right, before we move on to, let's see. Yeah, not much on the Fed. We'll skip that. All right, let's look now at the big concept here, which is financialization. And this really is, I've talked about this a lot, but from what I understand, most people don't understand anything unless you hear it a lot, so I'm going to repeat it. There are two camps generally when it comes to cryptocurrencies. There's the one camp that comes out, and every time they will tell you that Bitcoin is worthless, it has no value, it's a scam, it's a Ponzi scheme, and they may also tell you that They may also tell you that Bitcoin is going to be shut down by governments, which is kind of a contradiction because it was such a scam. And if it was so worthless, why would the government bother to shut it down? Well, they figure on the outside chance that it is worth something, government's going to shut it down. So that is the anti-Bitcoin argument. And there's a lot of people in that camp. I would say of casual observers and casual investors, that's probably the dominant view, that it's worthless. It's a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme. Has no value, and or governments will shut it down. Either way, they see no future in it whatsoever. The other camp are the Bitcoin fanatics. Bitcoin's going to change the world, end central banking. Bitcoin's short, long Bitcoin, short the bankers, as this guy Pompliano, who's in a fund, always saying. Max Kaiser, it means the death of governments. It means the end of the financial system. All these financial criminals are just going to be put out of business by Bitcoin. Look at Venezuela. It's a new financial system, a new paradigm. Everyone's going to be... And there's that side. And I always say both of them are 100% wrong. What's actually happening right in front of our faces, and because the two camps don't want to see it happening because it doesn't fit into their preconceived and very deeply held view. If you think Bitcoin is worthless, you can't even imagine the banks being interested in it. You can't imagine that anyone would waste any time on it. If you, on the other hand, are a Bitcoin fanatic, you see absolutely no reason why banks would ever need to get involved in what is essentially a peer-to-peer application. So they just think, they're wasting their time, they're losing their credibility, what's going on here? But actually, they're spending fortunes trying to bring the cryptocurrencies into the financial system. Now, to the people who think Bitcoin is worthless, they don't see it happening. They cannot see it happening. They think that they should be getting shut down. There's no way this is happening. Well, it is happening. And then the Bitcoin fanatics, they in a way don't want it to happen, and they think that it's not going to have any impact. But let's take a look at some news stories today. I mean, people are out there still saying, like the people that are against it, they're going to shut down Bitcoin. They're going to shut down ICOs. No. If Wall Street is doing ICOs, they're not going to shut that down any more than they're going to shut down IPO. And you could call them scams. Lyft, Snapchat, Pinterest, all these companies, they might be worth anything, but they're not going to shut them down. Too much money in it. Wall Street making a fortune, Silicon Valley making a fortune with their exits, lawyers and accountants, registration fees with the SEC. It's big, big money. But let's take a look at some of these stories just recently. E-Trade looks like they're going to have crypto trading. Now, why? Because there's millions and billions of dollars in trading cryptocurrencies. It can't all go to Binance and Kraken and Coinbase. If people are trading, they want a piece of the action. So E-Trade, one-up's rivals, Ready's launch, and they say they'll start with Bitcoin and Ethereum to their 5 million customers. Fidelity already has a platform, not open to retail investors, but it's Fidelity Digital Assets. They're working on that. We saw TD Ameritrade, also another huge one. They are going to be offering with NASDAQ Bitcoin and Litecoin paper trades. We see that TD Ameritrade and Fidelity are involved in another platform called ErisX. And then there's the big one, Bakkt, which is the New York Stock Exchange, Microsoft, Starbucks, and Boston Consulting. They're going to offer custodial services for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, as well as a physically settled Bitcoin futures contract, as well as mechanisms to convert the Bitcoin into fiat to spend at places like Starbucks. And today, Bakkt announced that they had acquired a custodial company called Digital Asset Company, and they're working with global bank BNY Mellon on key crypto storage. Now, if you're of the type, Bitcoin is worthless. It is going nowhere. It is just a string of digits. This goes over your head. You think, they're not doing like what? No, why would they do that? That doesn't even register. I mean, you can show them 10 stories of this and they won't get it. And then to the people that are Bitcoin fanatics, this kind of stuff irks them. It's like, yeah, well, good luck with that. Good luck with the bankers, because we're creating our own new financial world here. I've got my central bank in my pocket, and we're all going to have our own central banks, and death to the bankers. No, this is the reality. This is what's happening to the space. Bankers do control the financial system. You may not want them to. They may run paper Ponzi schemes. Sure, but this is where the money is right now. There's a couple of other stories that was in Fortune. This is in Cointelegraph. ICE Bakkt announces acquisition of digital custody company. Now this news people don't pay attention to this, but this is actually what's happening here. This is the one I think. This is in Fortune here. New York Stock Exchange owner buys crypto custodian latest push. So why are they setting up a custodial to put worthless assets in? They're not. They're putting big money into this because they know there's a lot of money in this. Is going to be a big deal, and they know it, and they're preparing for it. E-Trade, TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ. These are big names. BNY Mellon. Here's Jaguar. I think there's a bit of a scam here. But Land Rover planning to allow helpful car drivers to earn cryptocurrency. They're going to earn IOTA. Anyway, they're all just jumping on the bandwagon there. All right, what else do we have here? Already said that one. Okay, here is one that's very interesting. Remember I said there's a guy, Pompliano, and he is a Bitcoin. Well, he says a lot of this stuff. He says a lot, Bitcoin's going to change the world. He's always saying Bitcoin, long Bitcoin, short the bankers. But look what he says here. 1, TD Ameritrade allows Bitcoin trading. Bank. 2, E-Trade adding Bitcoin and Ethereum. Bank. Samsung. That's a very big company. 4, French banks must support crypto. There was a French law that said that you could not be booted as a cryptocurrency blockchain type company and not be allowed access to the banking system. Okay, so how is that short the bankers, long Bitcoin? I mean, TD Ameritrade, E-Trade, French bankers. Yeah, so he's probably, of my view, but he's promoting the Bitcoin fanatic side, but realizing that all this stuff that's happening in the bank is actually going to help the value of the cryptocurrencies because the banks are going to be in on it. Now, the people that are totally against Bitcoin, they don't believe anything he's saying because they don't say long Bitcoin, short the bankers. They probably don't like either. They just like gold and silver, and they're not fanatics of Bitcoin in any way, shape, or form. All right. What else do we have here? Okay, so I wrote this little crypto note on Twitter. I say, we live in a financial scam, and the biggest scam in financial history is about to be thrust upon us. And the reason I say that is that I get it. I understand that the people that think that, and it is true, that the stock markets and all the different markets are, quote, fake. Yes, and the reason they're fake is not because there's not real money involved, because if you buy these fake investments and then you sell them, you do make real money and you can buy real things with them. So I've stopped even listening to that it's fake. The reality is that you can call it manipulated, you can call it bank run, you can call it the powers that be, whatever you want to call it. It is the reality. 30 years ago, you could not bring these types of companies to market. They didn't exist anyway. But there are new methods of valuation. And I'm not saying they're right or they're even valuation methods, but they turn out to be, you can bring crappy companies to market as long as Silicon Valley is supporting them, as long as they can show some metric that gets people excited. Wall Street can sell them to institutional investors, the price will rise, and then they can sell them to retail investors. And this can go on 5, 10, 15 years. Some of these companies have been out there for years without ever earning a profit and yet have multi-billion-dollar market cap. Tesla comes to mind, Zillow. These are ones that have been around since, I think Zillow has been public probably 10 years. Tesla even probably about the same, and they don't make any money. Got all these new IPOs that come out. But that should tell you something. If they can do that, and they can make value out of thin air, that is why I say they are salivating over cryptocurrencies. They don't even have to justify a valuation. They don't have to collateralize houses and worry about people defaulting. They can pie in the sky cryptocurrencies and they can make their fortune trading it. Why do you think Bakkt is buying custodial arrangements? So they can store these non-existent assets, strings of digits and digital keys, and charge people money for it. And then they can trade them on their platforms, and they can hypothecate them, and they can put them into ETFs. Don't you think that Wall Street doesn't understand? They don't view this as a, well, if there was a threat, they realized how to make a threat into an opportunity. So that's what this little crypto note. We live in a financial scam, sure. And the biggest scam in financial history is about to be thrust upon us. I actually believe that they saw that crypto bubble in 2017. That was all mom and pop idiots with YouTube channels driven, pumping cryptocurrencies. They didn't get a piece of any of the ICOs. They didn't create any of the value. They didn't have. Now they've pumped all this money into platforms and stable coins, which we're going to talk about. That's big money there. And now they've lobbied their regulators, BitLicense. They're the ones who can afford them. They're the ones who can afford the compliance. And once that's all set up, it's an entirely new, hundreds of billions, probably trillion-dollar industry that they can sap. And the great thing is, it's even better than trading carbon credits. There's no politics in it. It's just a bunch of... It's the future. They can sell this stuff. And I'm sure that's my view. It's not investment advice. That's my macro view. I think I've seen too much money pouring in. Someone made a good point. Well, all that money poured into the internet companies. Yep. And they did make a fortune during that. And yes, a lot of them busted. Some of them broke through. I'm not saying everything that they do is going to be successful. But I believe they definitely see the value in this and where all this is heading. And remember, you'll never win in Monopoly if you keep saying this isn't real money. What if you're wrong? What if it may be fake, but what if it's fake for the next 40 years? All right. Well, let's see what else we got. And that's financialization. I think we covered all that. We got the Bitcoin investment, gold and silver, Litecoin. All right, I think it's time for Moronica, and then we'll get into the Tether, Bitfinex, and so on. We got a lot. I mean, this is some of this more. There's a lot of. There's not one Moronica today. We've got a decent amount of Moronica. I don't see anything in the chat here. Maybe this just hasn't refreshed. There they are. All right. Let us move on to Moronica. I think Pablo, while we're waiting, wanted me to do he wanted me to do The Godfather. I'll make him an offer he can't refuse. And that makes no difference to me. How a man earns his living, understand. But this Bitcoin is a dirty business. We'll make sure we get a piece of it. All right, let's move on now to our friends at Moronica. Uh-oh, we got a moron here.
Presenting the distinguished international news commentator and foreign correspondent.
This has been an extraordinary week in world affairs.
No, I told Hillary Clinton that that's moronic.
Okay, moronic story number 1. Here is a reporter, Tara Palmieri. Saturday night, Donald Trump intentionally held a campaign rally in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Swing state, makes sense for him to go there. And as a result of him going there, he did not go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And this woman was tweeting during the dinner that watching the president's speech while they're at the Correspondents' Dinner. Remember, the Correspondents' Dinner was, I think, last year. They had a comedian there who got up and just made fun of, but not roasted in a friendly way, but like was nasty too. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, her physical appearance and so on. So I don't think anyone from the Trump people went. But this woman, Tara Palmieri, now listen to this Moronica. We're about a half hour and a half into the rally, and the president has not mentioned the White House Correspondents Association dinner. He just said there's nowhere he'd rather be than in Wisconsin. Okay. Why should he? I mean, these people think they're so important. They're journalists. Trump doesn't mention me. How are they any more important? I mean, they write stuff. They cover stuff. They don't even cover the whole story. I mean, they just tell you what they want to tell you, how much they're against Trump or whatever it is. Why would he mention them? I mean, that is truly moronic. But it's interesting that they're at the dinner worried that he's not thinking about them. Very childish. I mean, correspondents having dinner was of no importance to the people other than those eating it and those serving it. It just moronica. All right, we got more though. We definitely got more. This one is ridiculous. Okay, this woman, Stacey Abrams, lost the Georgia governor campaign, and she says she feels comfortable saying she won despite losing. No comment necessary. That is just moronic. I feel like even though we lost, that we really won. Okay, now this one is, this is a New York Times op-ed. Now this is supposedly the paper of record. It's supposed to be a serious paper. This guy writes, the men at Fox News have a sickly obsession with AOC, partly because they resent her cleverness, charisma, and moral vitality, but mostly because they suspect that in high school, she was one of those girls they had no hope of getting a date with. Yeah, that is why the men at Fox News have a sickly obsession, because they resent her cleverness. I mean, most of the criticism about AOC, and I don't talk about her, but is that she's dumb as a rock. Not that they think she's so clever and that she's out like intellectualizing issues with her. I mean, she's a laughingstock for some of the stuff that she says. But then to get into this trite psycho babble that these guys are thinking back to their high school and they're thinking, yeah, I probably couldn't have got a date with her. Now, I'm not even going to comment on her appearance, but that's sexist in and of itself, to be defending her as someone who somehow, these are people that guys wouldn't want to have a date. I couldn't get a date with. The guys at Fox News, I would think, have a sickly obsession with Maxine Waters and Nancy Pelosi. Is that the same reason? They think that Maxine is so clever and so charismatic and that they could never have dated her in high school. This is moronic, and it's moronic on many levels. And it's even more moronic coming from the New York Times. But we're not done. We're not done. I think we got more moronica. Now, this is political moronica, but it's actually pretty smart. Sally Yates. Sally Yates was the former Deputy Attorney General. She was the Rod Rosenstein of the Obama era. And so, therefore, she was involved in a lot of things. And she refused to sign off on something early. She was a holdover in the Trump administration, so he fired her. And then she had all the moral indignation that she would not do what Trump wanted to do, whatever it was. Well, she was on Meet the Press and one of those shows, and she said, I've personally prosecuted obstruction of justice cases on far, far less evidence than this. If Trump were not the president of the United States, he would likely be indicted on obstruction. I doubt it, but that's not the point. This isn't as bad as what Hillary Clinton said. Hillary Clinton was making the same argument. Now, if anyone got a free pass, it was her, but we're not talking about her. The problem with Sally Yates, though, is, unlike Hillary Clinton is finished. I mean, she's out of it. Well, maybe she's not. They may try to get her on the Steele dossier. But anyway, Sally Yates signed, I don't remember which of the 4 FISA warrants. Now remember what I said the other night, that the insurance policy was the Russian collusion hoax. But the insurance policy for the Russian collusion hoax was the Mueller dossier, which contains the obstruction of justice charges that they knew Trump would, or the activities Trump would engage in if they accused him of Russian collusion. So that's what they're focusing on now. Like, well, there's no collusion, but look at all the stuff he tried to do to try to say there wasn't Russian collusion. He obstructed justice. But where Sally Yates is actually, I guess these people have to fight to the end. If she signed one of the FISA warrants that was illegal, which they're appearing more and more, even Woodward in the New York Times, who are finally saying, "Oh, maybe there's something wrong with that FISA warrant. Maybe the Steele dossier should have been vetted." Well, now they're saying that, yeah, and maybe Sally Yates should have read it or not approved of the FISA warrant if it was only based on the salacious and unverified Steele dossier. But she's out there fighting, just like Brennan. They're out there complaining, not complaining. They're on a fence that yes, and they know. They need to get Trump. They need to drum up this final insurance policy. They need to get him on obstruction. Otherwise, it's over because the tables have already started turning. There's a Horowitz Inspector General's report coming out. There's Bill Barr looking into also the FISA abuses and other things. Trump says he's going to release a lot of declassify a lot of information. So they've got to get out there and rip on Trump and make sure that, or hope, they impeach him for obstruction of justice. So I wouldn't say it's moronica, but that leads into Rod Rosenstein. What did I say here? Wait a minute. Oh, Senator John Corrigan made the point I just made, is that her actions are likely to be part of the investigation of the DOJ Inspector General's report soon to be reported, and certainly part of the forthcoming Senate Judiciary Committee oversight hearings on the FBI DOJ during the Obama years in which she served as Deputy AG under Loretta Lynch. Now remember, unlike in the House where the Democrats are going nuts with subpoenas trying to get Trump, the Republicans control the Senate, and they've yet to gear up their investigations, their subpoenas. So it's going to be an interesting summer to be sure. And what else? Now, speaking of Rod Rosenstein, what does Rod have to do with this? FISA warning, signing Sally Yates. We already covered that. What's this? Yes. The insurance policy on the Steele dossier, Russian collusion insurance policy, meaning they created an insurance policy if Hillary lost, that they could then use the Russian collusion angle, which was buttressed by the Steele dossier, which was the basis to get a FISA warrant, so they can then go after him for that, and then they could have a special counsel look into Donald Trump's supposed collusion with Russia. Failing that, and they realized they would fail that because they didn't have anything on Russian collusion, would be Mueller would issue a report, which I call the Mueller dossier, which would contain up all these drummed up obstruction of justice charges that he was too cowardly to bring, but he said, hey, Congress, have a go at it. It's a 100% political document. Legally, it never should have been issued. I'm surprised Barr allowed a report to be issued like that, because that's information he doesn't need to know. I've mentioned this before, just because something happened, but it didn't lead to a charge, and Rosenstein mentioned this the other day, that's not your job to exonerate anyone or to put somebody in a false light. If you're not going to charge somebody, you don't make public why you think you might have but refuse to do so. So, for example, what Comey did when he didn't charge Hillary Clinton, when he gave a public press announcement, he put her in a false light. He said, here's everything Hillary did, but we're not going to bring charges. And by doing that, he made the FBI look stupid because, one, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to say, we're not going to charge somebody, but here's all the criminal acts that she did. But two, because they were so bad what she did, it made her look bad, and it made the FBI look bad for mentioning it and not doing anything about it. So I would hope that in the future, you either have charges brought against people or you don't. You don't say, we're not going to bring charges, but we're just going to throw all the garbage out there and somebody will find something and maybe you can impeach him over that. And that's the last thing on the insurance policy. And the problem with impeachment is recent polls have shown between 30 and 35% are in favor of it. It's not going to work, because even if you manage to, the House can pass impeachment. I mean, they got the 50%, but it's not going to go to the Senate. They're not going to get 2/3, so he's not going to be removed. And the problem with that is then you look weak and inept if you try to impeach him. So they really need to move on from this, but they really don't have anything to move on from, because as I've mentioned for years, the last 2 years now, the big mistake from day one was this Russian collusion narrative, because the Democrats did not get an opportunity to define themselves versus Trump on policy. All they did was say, Orange man bad, and he colluded with Russians, and now he's obstructing justice. But again, you got 20 Democrats running for president. They can't just run being against Trump, because they're all against Trump. That doesn't distinguish them. What are going to be their policies? So strategically, this is a big mistake. And if the economy is strong, it's going to be very hard to beat him with just, we don't like Donald Trump. Let's look at Rod Rosenstein. Well, he resigned just a few hours ago. He's going to leave, I think, May 11th. There he is. Rod Rosenstein gone from the whole scene. All right, before we go, let's briefly talk about this Tether, Bitfinex, and competitors. I discussed it briefly last night. I just want to get another marker down on what's actually happened. Now, the New York Attorney General came out, and she issued a report showing that there's malfeasance in the whole way that Bitfinex and Tether were operating. Now, there had been speculation that Tether, which is supposedly a stablecoin, backed 1-to-1 by dollar. So after you sell your cryptocurrencies on Bitfinex, you can move them into, instead of dollars, you move them to a token called Tether, and they're worth $1. And then when you want to trade again, you just swap out the Tether and you buy your cryptocurrencies. There had been so many stories that there wasn't the money there, they didn't trust the audits and so on. Well, actually what happened, according to the AG's report in New York, that Bitfinex and Tether, they're both owned, I think, by the same entity, raided the Tethers for hundreds of millions of dollars. Pretty much the backing that, they're actually proved that there was backing there. Shady corporate business practices and so on is what the AG was pointing out. Now, the question is, why is the Attorney General of New York worried about a Hong Kong company, Bitfinex, and its whole Tether thing when, I mean, there's not that many New Yorkers using Bitfinex and Tether. That's the one thing they're focused on. Well, you do a little digging and you think, I have no evidence of this and I don't get involved in conspiracies, as you know, but I'll throw some facts out there of what actually has been happening. First of all, Bitfinex back in 2015 said they weren't going to apply for a bit license. That's the New York State license that companies that are looking to curry favor with regulators and have purchased these bit licenses, and they include Boston-based Circle. Now, Circle has since had investment from Goldman Sachs. Circle has since purchased cryptocurrency trading platform Poloniex, not Kraken, and is also purchasing a company that's going to tokenize Wall Street securities. Interesting. So Circle, Goldman Sachs backed Circle, has a bit license. Gemini, the Winklevoss twins, supposedly donated $100,000 to some New York politician. They have a Bitcoin license for their trading platform Gemini. And Gemini has a US dollar stablecoin, just like Tether was introduced last year. Circle also has a US dollar stablecoin. Very interesting that the two of them have stablecoins and the two of them have bit licenses, and Bitfinex does not have a bit license. Ripple has a bit license. Coinbase got a bit license in January 2017. Last year, Coinbase issued US dollar coin by Coinbase, a stable coin. Then another company, which was it? Paxo. Now they're owned by Liberty X. Yes, they have a bit license. Paxo also has a US dollar stablecoin. Now watch what happens after this cloud is created over non-bit New York bit license. What happens in the markets? Well, Paxos issues 100 million worth of stablecoins. How convenient. So, out with the Tether, in with the Paxos, and the Coinbase, and the Gemini, and the Circle stablecoins, right? They got bit licenses. If people don't want Tethers, well, you just go with the stablecoins that people feel comfortable with. They're FDIC insured. They've got their bit license, and there you go. Now, what happened to Bitfinex? Bitfinex trading platform? Well, that New York Attorney General report did the trick. People want out of Bitfinex. So Bitfinex has to take $89 million worth of Bitcoin out of cold storage. Why? People are going to take their Bitcoin out of there. They're going to move it to, maybe they're going to move it to Coinbase. Maybe they're going to move it to Binance. Maybe they're going to move it to Circle, Poloniex. Maybe they're going to move it to one of the Gemini trading platforms, the ones that have bit licenses and are regulated by New York. So Bitfinex loses the $89 million. And they lose probably $100 million worth of Tether, or an equivalent amount of Tether that they can issue. Let's see what else happened in the aftermath. So I say here, the result of the New York Attorney action is customers remove Bitcoin from Bitfinex to other exchanges, and the demand for New York regulated bit license holder stablecoin alternatives increases, i.e. Paxos, Coinbase, Gemini, and Circle. These are facts. Whether this was all intentional, why the New York Attorney General decided to go after Bitfinex, I don't know. But it did help. I mean, whether it was intentional or not, it is going to help these. Now, someone else made the point, I found this today, independent of me, which is she has a different take on it, but it's the same concept. She's characterizing it as out with the bad actors out. And this is good because the crypto market is saturated with shade and shady. I guess she's thinking, Bitfinex and Tether are shady. And they may be. And you could just say the New York Attorney General is just doing her job. However, the next wave of startup companies innovating in the space won't be the same. Investors are wising up. Well, that's definitely true. And I call Bitfinex and Tether the Mt. Gox of exchanges and Tether and stablecoins. But here's where you get into an issue with this. The people that are against Bitcoin, all they hear in this story is fraud. Bitcoin is worthless, and it is a scam, and this is evidence of fraud. And this to them is just another example that Bitcoin's no good. And then to the Bitcoin fanatics, this means nothing to them. This means that as much ado about nothing, all this regulation nonsense, no. This is actually, I say like it or not, the winners in the stablecoin and crypto exchange race will be the bit license holders, will be the ones, the Wall Street regulated ones. Square, I didn't mention, they don't have a stablecoin, but they have a bit license. And If you go to a Square app, a cash app, you can buy Bitcoin directly there. And they've sold almost $200 million worth of Bitcoin in 2018. They'll probably double that this year. Robinhood, which is a trading platform, they sell cryptocurrencies as well. They have a Bit license. Gemini, the Winklevoss twins, they have a Bit license. Coinbase, they have a Bit license. Paxos doesn't have them because they're with LibertyX, which has a Bit license, and they also have some other New York regulation. Then they have a stable coin. So I think this is all this ties right into the idea that all of this regulation is designed to bring in all the favored companies that are going to make a fortune off of selling, storing, trading, creating new financial products out of cryptocurrencies, which really doesn't make any sense because cryptocurrencies are designed to eliminate the middleman. But the middleman has found out a way to get in there and make some mint, I believe. All right, let's see what you guys are saying, have been saying, will be saying. And by the way, all those companies like Paxos has raised $93 million. Circle's got Goldman Sachs money. They all have big money behind them. Coinbase has raised hundreds of millions of dollars. All these companies raised a lot of money. They're in with the Bit license, and they want to make a lot of money. All right. Let's see what we have tonight. All right, we got the whole team here. Pablo and Shark and Fiona and Anne and Luke. All right. Fiona, Smaulgld, wasn't Rosenstein fired today? Well, he says he resigned. Yeah, and I did mention that. Well, you wrote that earlier, I guess. Philip Quinn says the only thing Trump is guilty of is not owning a Smaulgld mug. By the way, tonight is Monday Night Mugging with Smaulgld, mugging for life. Just remember, if you don't have a mug, a Smaulgld mug, or you'd like to get another one, tonight's a good night to do it on Monday night. Go to smaulgld.com. All your buying options are there. You can get the classic, super classic mug. Those are the ones I ship out myself. Or you can get a travel mug, a beer stein, a beer mug, all different types of pet bowls, shirts, hats, all Smaulgld products. Helps the site out. Or you can help the site out by sending a check or item of value to Smaulgld, LLC, P.O. Box 714, Dover, New Hampshire. Or you can help the site out by buying your precious metals through the affiliate links at SD Bullion, Money Metals Exchange, and Golden Eagle Coin. They're all below this BitChute and this YouTube. They're all on the Smaulgld site. They're every day. Each article contains the links. I make a small commission on that. It's not investment advice to buy gold or silver. But if you're going to buy, you pay no more, no less than if you visited those sites directly. So please help the site out if you are indeed in the market. Many of you have made the special effort. I do appreciate that. It does help the site out. Remember, we don't have YouTube ads all over the site, and you don't have to listen to that. You just have to listen to a little mug pumping and a little request for donations. Also, Patreon and Subscribestar are ways to join and help Smaulgld on a monthly basis, and thank you to those who do indeed do that. Or you can make a one-time donation via PayPal or even a recurring donation. I want to thank I think I have a couple who make recurring donations. They're not on Patreon or Subscribestar, but they do it through the PayPal, so thank you for that. And I think we don't have any more comments here, unless my screen is not showing them. I don't have a lot of comments. And if not, I'm going to give you the Bernie 10-second countdown. If we don't have anything, we're going to say goodnight.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1%, 0. Have a good night.